The podcast you're about to enjoy is part of the LOWTREE Studios podcast network. To enjoy great podcasts like this one, go now to the LOWTREEstudios.com. And remember, get to the podcast.
Wreck My Podcast.
Dive into this 80s movie with us where we make a splash.
Ba-dum.
This week on Wreck My 80s.
Wreck My Podcast.
Welcome in to this episode of Wreck My Podcast, a very special episode, and you'll find out why. I'm here with just one guest today. Madison's not a name. My wife, Madison.
Hello.
So we're covering the movie Splash.
Yes.
The 80s Tom Hanks movie.
Yes.
You want to fill our listeners in on why we're watching this, covering it, and why you're the special guest star of this one?
Okay, you can't cover this one and me not be on it because this is how I got my name.
Yeah.
So, fun fact to start it off, when this movie came out, Madison, the name, was like in the rank of popularity, like below the 200s. Like
Yeah.
it didn't even make the top 200s. By 1995, it was in the top 20s, and by 2000, it was the top 3 names.
Yeah.
So my parents weren't as original as they thought, but at the time, this was like a big deal
Yeah.
that I was named after.
They were like, this
movie.
80s movie. Did your dad
Yeah.
actually like this movie?
No, but they liked how unique the name was. Yeah. And that's what I was going to say. They weren't like obsessed with the movie and they were like,
Yeah.
we want to name her, but they were like, this name is really cool. We want to name her Madison.
Yeah, which is funny to think about because Madison is such a popular name for our
Yeah.
generation. Like
Correct.
growing up, like you said, from the 90s on.
Yeah.
Madison is very popular. So
It
it's
is.
weird to go back to a time where they make the joke in this movie that like, oh, Madison Avenue is how she got her name. And
Yeah.
he's like, well, Madison's not really a name, but sure, you can be Madison.
Right.
And it's like, yeah. Were people not named
Right.
Madison?
Well,
back then?
it was like James Madison was
Yeah.
the president. It was either a last name. I know for a long time it was a boy's name.
Uh-huh.
And then it just went out of like style completely. And then here we go.
It's so
back
funny.
in style.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's so funny to think of there was a
Yes.
time like that. So weird.
So naturally, I grew up on this movie. It's just a classic 80s
Yeah.
amazingness.
And I had never seen it until we were dating, and then we watched it together once, like 5 or 6 years ago, and now this is only my second time viewing it.
And this is probably my 350th.
Yeah, you watched it a lot. So before we get too far into this, I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown of what the plot is. Bailey,
She was doing the zombie eye. Sorry.
stop doing that. Our dog is itching like crazy, and we
Sorry.
have to be on her because she can't just chill ever.
No.
But anyway, we're going to get into the breakdown of the movie
Yes.
plot here. I'm going to do the Jordan explains
Yes,
the movie
please do.
quickly, and
Yes.
then we'll move on
I'm
from there.
excited to see what you gathered from this
All right.
movie. Tell me.
Oh yes, it's time for Jordan to explain the movie quickly.
Alan met a mermaid as a kid and hasn't been able to find love since then, so he goes back to Cape Cod to clear his mind. After a boat mishap, he almost drowns and is saved by the same mermaid from when he was a kid. She follows Alan back to New York, and what happens is a literal fish out of water story. She has 6 days to be on land before she can never go back to the sea. They end up falling in love during their time together, and she agrees to marry him and leave the ocean behind. All while this is happening, a scientist is trying to prove the existence of mermaids, and he ends up succeeding, so now Alan and everyone knows her secret. The government takes Madison to run experiments on her, and Alan doesn't know what to think because he's so shocked. Alan's screw-up brother Freddie helps him see that whether she's a fish or not, he loves her. So the scientist who discovered Madison realizes that the government is going to kill her, so he helps Alan break her out. The military gives chase, but they make it to the ocean, and I guess Alan becomes a mermaid or something, and then they live in Atlantis, and I don't know what the
Happily
heck happened
ever
at the end.
after.
So, like, the end of this movie, what the heck? So, like, this movie is like a romantic comedy mixed with like a little bit of just that 80s cheesy,
Right.
like, oh, everyone finds out she's a mermaid. And then Alan's like, cool, but I love a mermaid. And then it gets to, like, the end of the movie, and they make it to the ocean. And he's like, you gotta go. Like, we're not gonna get to be together. But then, like, he jumps in after her and, like, almost drowns. And then she kisses him.
Yes.
And apparently you're like, oh, no, now he has mermaid powers. But
mermaid
he's not
magic.
Yeah, he's not a merman. Wow, we got some hiccups
Sorry.
going on there. Not a merman, but, like, he's
able to breathe underwater.
He can breathe underwater.
They don't even ever say that. What they say, which they talk about when he's like a kid. She says it. I think you were getting your beer while they were talking about it. But she's like, do you remember when you were underwater as a kid? Like, you were safe because you were with me. And he was like, oh my gosh, that was real. Like, that was you. And then she's like, yeah. And then he jumps in the water. And, like, again, like, he's always safe when he's in the water with her. So they don't say, like, oh yeah, because she kissed him, it means he can breathe. It's just like, this is her turf.
Yeah.
Like, he's safe with her. He's not going to drown. He doesn't need to be scared. All that stuff.
Yeah, it kind of, like, just...
He doesn't sprout a tail or anything.
Yeah,
like,
it kind of unravels at the end, because by that logic, I'm like, okay, cool. You take him down to, like, your city you live in.
yes.
And now it's like, cool, if you ever leave his side...
Yeah,
you're
he
dead,
can't.
bro.
That's why she said it's a life decision. You can't come back after that, which I don't know why, but
He could come back, I feel like.
That's what she said at the end.
No?
He's like, yeah, I'll go with you, and then I can still come back for Christmas with Freddie. And she's like, no, like, if you come, you can't ever come back. And that's why he doesn't go with her initially. And then when he sees that she's in trouble, he, like, jumps off for her, and then she saves him, and then they have an underwater fight.
He never got to say bye to his brother
Well,
Freddie.
technically, Freddie was going to jail anyway.
That's true.
So, I mean, what
he was
was he
very
really
okay with
missing
it.
on? Yeah, and also Freddie was encouraging him to do all this.
So who's going to take over Bauer Produce?
Freddie is.
But in
That's
jail?
What, they were switching off, like the roles had reversed because
Yeah.
he had finally found his person.
That's so funny. Okay, so...
It's 80s logic,
I get it.
okay?
I get it.
It's 80s
And let's be
rom-com
honest,
logic.
It's directed, and I don't know if it's actually written by, but directed by someone, and we'll talk about later, who is very whimsical
Yes.
in lots of his movies.
Correct.
So we'll talk about that later, but let's kind of, like, talk about some things in this movie that,
Yes.
like, either didn't make sense or kind of, like, funny things to
Sure.
point out. And you pointed out a few this time, and I was like,
Yes.
oh, that's good. So, like, the first thing that I want to talk about, though, is the long hair butt scandal for Disney Plus.
That was such a big deal. I don't know why.
This movie was rated PG, I think, and there's some butts in it. Is it
There's a lot of
PG-13?
butts, and there's a lot of boobs, and there's a lot of cursing.
I think it's PG-13, actually.
It's PG-13.
And I think so it was always PG-13, and there's even, like, a scene where, like, Tom Hanks is naked and, like, he's just holding his junk.
Yeah.
So, like, there is a lot of, like, flesh being shown on the screen.
They blurred it out in this one, but in the original movie, when she's, like, underwater and stuff topless, like, you see her boobs. Like,
Yeah.
nipples, everything.
Yeah.
You don't see it here.
So this is, like, 80s was, like, you know, at the forefront of, like...
Also, I'm 90% sure when it came out, it was rated R.
It could have been.
And then it got scaled back.
It's now PG because
Yeah.
it's on Disney Plus. There was
Correct.
a lot less cussing in it, and they've kind of gotten rid of all those nudity scenes. Like, they really
Quite a
kind
bit.
of pushed in on her anytime she's
Blurred
topless, so you
some
can't see
stuff
blurred some
out.
stuff. And then the infamous scene that just looks awful, where they CGI'd her hair longer to cover her butt when she jumps back into
So
the ocean,
they
and it
didn't-
looks awful.
It's not that they CGI'd it longer. It's that when she was running before, her hair would naturally move like it would if you were running. So you would
Yeah.
see butt crack. They just made it so her hair doesn't move at the
Yeah.
bottom, which I think is what makes it look so bad.
It looks so awkward.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that they made it longer. It's that they made it just like non-moving at the
Yeah,
bottom.
it was
doesn't
very awkward.
work.
So we'll get that out of the way there. There's a whole, like, scandal. There was
Yeah.
a few movies that when Disney Plus got them, they
Right.
kind of edited them down.
Right.
And people were kind of like, I'm like, whatever. It
Yeah.
doesn't really
It
matter
makes
that much.
sense. I
Yeah,
get
I
it.
get it. They're trying to be more kid-friendly on
Yeah.
that platform, whatever. You brought up a good point. So she can't speak English at the beginning.
Correct.
But she was able to read his license and, like, a map and
Yes.
figure out how to get to New York. So, like...
Which, okay, one of my favorite parts of the whole movie is the underwater scene where she goes in the pirate ship
Yeah.
and she, like, gets the
Very
map and
Little
stuff.
Mermaid-esque.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Like, I used to pretend to do that in the pool when I was
Yeah.
younger. Like, I love it. But I'm like, yeah, what is the thought process here that she can, like, match up the symbols? Like, she knew which map to get. She knew how to find her way to swim to this
Yeah.
area. Like, the map has GPS or something from Cape Cod to New York. How did she get there? I don't know. But
Yeah.
it's kind of doesn't make any sense.
No, it didn't make any sense. And you brought up another point that didn't really make any sense where... So Alan almost drowns in Cape Cod, and she
Yes.
saves him, and she goes on the land, she kisses him, then she runs back in the water and
Right.
leaves. Then later, she gets his license, finds out he's from New York, goes and finds him in New York. You were like, wait a second. Why did she leave him in Cape Cod to then go track him down in New York again? She was already with him.
Right.
Why didn't she just stay with him?
And also the same thing happens where when he's initially in Cape Cod and he washes up on the shore, she goes up to him and she kisses him and he's like infatuated with her. Like, oh my gosh, don't leave. Like, oh my gosh, why didn't I learn how to swim? He like can't go after her, right? And then when she figures out how to get to New York and he finds her, they kiss, and then he's like infatuated with her. I'm like, what really progressed the storyline here?
Yeah.
The only reason I feel like they did this is because he has to have doubts about where she came from. Like, his hang up is like, why did she get arrested naked in New York?
Yeah.
Like, what happened? Like, and that's part of
more of the mystery
story
of her.
of why he's like so doubtful or something. But I'm like, this whole little scene didn't need to be a part of it.
No, not at all. So that was kind of funny. He sings Zippity Doodah a lot.
When he's post-sex.
Yeah.
Yes.
That pre-nut clarity for him is Zippity Doodah.
Right.
Which is funny because they have that scene where, like, they stop the elevator on, like, 3.5.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, some stuff's going down here, you know?
Right.
Which, why is she such a horny mermaid?
Well, I feel like they don't have any other method of communicating. So
That's
she's,
true.
like, showing him that she likes him or something. I don't really know, but that's how they only had 6 days. Okay,
I guess so,
they had to get it going.
Yeah, jump in there. So at the end when she dives in,
it's not the
not the
cleanest
most
dive.
graceful dive ever. It looked like a belly flop.
I told Jordan there were a lot of helicopters and wind and stuff going on, so maybe that was a little difficult, but you would assume a mermaid would have a little bit more of a graceful dive.
Yeah, you would assume.
Yeah.
But then again, she doesn't typically dive from land in. So, you know, she's out of practice. I also was wondering the whole time, like, so in the 80s, is consent just like she can't speak, but the fact that she's the one who initiated, I guess that's consent.
Fair enough. She could have stopped it. We've seen her beat up some guys at the end.
True.
She could have stood up for herself if she didn't want it.
So I was just
and
like,
vice versa. Tom Hanks could have stood up for himself if he didn't want it. He didn't seem to have any complaints.
The last thing I was kind of curious about too, I'm like, the world seems pretty unshocked by the fact that a mermaid is like proven real.
Well, this is the thing I was thinking too. I'm like, so back then there was no social media.
Yeah.
There was like just the news reporters.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel like if stuff like this happened, like how many times have we seen something that's like Bigfoot sighted and you're like, sure.
Even the Navy's telling us UFOs exist and we're like, yeah, whatever.
Do we believe it? So I'm like, I kind of figured it was one of those. Like, and he always thought he was like nobody believed him even though he thought mermaids were real. And then he meaning the doctor. So I'm like, I feel like it makes sense that maybe, because it's supposed to take place in modern New York,
the real
like
world
today,
of New York.
Yes.
Yeah, which makes sense too, because if you think about all the things that we see and we just all write them off as hoaxes.
Yeah, you're like,
because
no way.
Remember that monolith that popped up in like the Utah Badlands or whatever and stuff like that, and it's like we all were like, oh, that's nothing, and it ended up being like we proved it was nothing, but like our first thought,
it wasn't what you thought it was.
Yeah, our first thought as humans is always be like, yeah, that's not real.
Right. So I feel like it could happen.
Yeah,
I could see it.
Yeah. So that's pretty funny. Was there anything else you noticed watching it this time? Now, because when was the last time you had seen this movie?
And not since we watched it together, which
so like
I wasn't even convinced that you and I had watched it together, but you 100% believe we did.
100% convinced. It was back when your parents still had the couch on the opposite side, and they had the big old entertainment center.
Right.
It was like back in the old days of when we would like hang out at your parents' house and stuff. Or I guess it was your house at the time too.
House,
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, no, nothing else really stood out. There was a few things where I'm like, it's funnier now that I'm an adult. Like when he's like talking about how he got his letter printed in Penthouse magazine and stuff. I'm like, that is just like so random and funny, and like there's just so much stuff that I just didn't get. Like when he's like, oh, I don't think my like heart is working, and John Candy's like, that's not the worst organ that could not be working. I'm like, I never even knew any, like I was not
or like the
savvy.
The way that John Candy gets out of the Swedish thing is he's like, I have a 12-inch penis. It's like the dude's just like, oh, okay. Like,
it's just more like, this is so funny and awkward, but like that stuff that would just like completely go over my head. Again, this is a movie I've watched since I was literally like 2 years old, so like I feel like even if I had watched it for the first time at 13, I probably would have got it. But since I didn't even think twice about it, I would watch it mindlessly. I just did not.
Well, it's like the same thing with Grease. You watched that when you were really young and you didn't get some of the rapey vibes going on.
Not at all. Like, not at all.
Yeah.
So, even like the elevator stopping and all this stuff, I'm like, I don't really know how my parents let me watch this. But
well, that was like, that's kind of an implied thing that may not make sense to a kid. But there were some very in-your-face things, too.
Right.
Mostly nipples, but so what do you think of this movie? Like, you still enjoy it as an adult?
Love it.
Okay, well,
it's not a watch every year movie.
No, I don't think
so.
It's
a watch
either.
Every 5 years movie.
I think I agree with you, and I do like this movie. And I guess I should ask you if it wrecks your Tom Hanks / 80s.
Not at all.
For me, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Because, and here's the saving grace, there are a lot of funny parts.
Yeah.
Which I like there, but what I love about it is it's just the magic of young Tom Hanks. It's like,
absolutely,
it's Tom Hanks being Tom Hanks.
Correct.
And I love that. And just seeing him so young, seeing Eugene Levy that young.
So young.
Seeing John Candy. I love John Candy and everything.
I know.
So I'm like, the cast just makes it for me.
Correct.
Like,
they really did a great job with the
script
cast.
could be awful, and I would still like this movie just because it's all the people I want to watch.
Right.
You know?
I absolutely
So I agree with you. It's not like a watch every year kind of movie, but definitely like if someone was like, hey, you want to watch Splash? I'd be like, yeah.
I also think if you watched it now, it wouldn't be... If you had never seen it before, I wouldn't recommend this movie. But if you haven't seen it in a long time, but you watched it like a long time ago, I'd be like, you need to watch this movie.
It has enough of the 80s charm. It's not as much as like something like Back to the Future or Ferris Bueller, like not that high 80s charm, but like enough to be like, if you like 80s movies, you're gonna like this movie.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the like kind of stats of this movie, right?
Yes.
We're pulling a tag team here.
Yes.
And you got some stuff.
I have lots of info.
I got some stuff. So let's talk about this movie. Came out, what was it, March?
March 9th, 1984.
1984.
Yep.
What did you say? Did you look at what the budget was for this movie?
So the budget was $11 million.
Gotcha.
Which I feel like you always tell me that's not actually that much, but this was 80s.
That's quite a bit for a romantic comedy in the 80s.
It was $11 million budget. In the first weekend, it grossed $6.2 million, and then in its full run, it grossed almost $70 million.
$69.8 million.
Yeah,
that's
almost
insane.
$70 million. Yeah, so that's pretty good. I feel
that is insane, and that's USA and worldwide gross. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming it only was released in the United States
Right.
because. I think back in the 80s they didn't really do like these type of movies. It was like Star Wars would be like internationally released, and like bigger movies like maybe Blade Runner, but like something like this kind of stateside is where it sits. You didn't tell me what the Rotten Tomato score was yet. I want to guess.
Okay, yeah.
I think critic score is going to be mid 50s.
Okay.
And I think audience score is going to be low 60s.
Okay, so on RottenTomatoes.com, I even double checked that I am at the right place. The tomato meter, which you said is the critic score, is 91%.
Are you kidding me?
And the audience score says 58%.
Well, okay, that is a huge gap in the opposite direction of what it normally is.
But can I tell you why I think that?
Yeah, tell me why you think that.
I think it's because it's directed by Ron Howard.
And now let's get into that.
I think that's the reason.
Directed by Ron Howard. Many of you may know him as the voice of the Arrested Development narrator, as well as like this dude.
He's in so much
this
stuff.
Dude
he directed The Grinch with Jim Carrey.
Yeah, this guy has such
Child
a
Star,
good, and he is
American Graffiti.
I
love
this guy
him.
is just like crazy.
Backdraft.
Did he do Backdraft?
Yes.
And Backdraft 2. He was an executive producer on.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so get this. I'm looking at his producer credits right now.
Yeah.
This dude has 102 producer credits.
This guy has to be one of the most like involved Hollywood professionals in the world.
86 acting credits.
Correct.
So not only director, actor. Like
producer.
You brought up he was a kid actor.
Correct.
What movie was he in as a kid? There was a really famous one.
He's Leave It to Beaver.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yes, he's Beaver. He's Beav.
I think he's Beaver.
Oh, that's
I think
so
he's in Leave
funny.
It to Beaver. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Which actually I could probably find it right here. He was in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Danny Thomas Show.
Fun fact, while Jordan's looking it up.
Dennis the Menace.
Oh, Dennis the Menace.
Not
I thought he was Leave It to Beaver. I was going to say the reason I knew he was Backdraft is because when I was young and I would go to Universal Studios, part of the ride is you would wait till like in the waiting room they would like tell you how the movie was made, and Ron Howard was the director and he was the one who would like walk you through it.
You know what? I'm surprised he directed the Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons.
I can see that.
I
It seems
do not
like his type of thing.
remember him doing that one. Cinderella Man. I was unaware he did that one too.
Okay, yeah. I mean, he's done a lot of
But we love
stuff.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
My favorite.
We're very big on that. Apollo 13, I'm
Yeah.
a big fan of.
That's also Tom Hanks.
Yep. He did Willow. You know, that's a fantastical movie as well. Cocoon is a big one. This dude's crazy. I want to see what his first directing credit is. Did you?
I said it was like a short film in '69.
Yeah, it was Deed of Daring Do was his first directing in 1969, and then Grand Theft Auto in 1977 looks like his first full length.
Maybe.
And the first one I actually recognize is Splash. That's the first movie I recognize.
Because it was like within the first 10, I think, when I counted it.
So that's so funny, man. Ron Howard.
Yeah.
You gotta love the guy. I was wondering, it isn't written by Ron Howard. It's written by a man named Brian Grazer.
Yep.
And it looks like it had some screenplay help by Lau Gans and Babaloo Mandel. Babaloo.
What a name.
His name is Babaloo Mandel.
Although, to be fair, Jordan and I were just talking to somebody the other day whose name is Cricket.
Yes, we were talking to Cricket.
You know.
So let's talk about the cast here. We got
Yes.
Tom Hanks. I mean, who doesn't know Tom
Right.
Hanks?
So many movies.
Yeah, that guy is great. Daryl Hannah.
Yeah.
She plays Madison the mermaid. We were just
Yeah.
talking about how she was in Kill Bill.
Yeah.
We
Is she
just saw
not
her.
in Blade Runner? Isn't she the little grungy girl?
She's the replicant, I believe, in
Yeah.
Blade Runner as well.
That's what I know her from.
You've seen Blade Runner?
I watched it with you, yes.
We watched it together?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I thought I've only seen that movie once, so that's why I
No, we've
must have
definitely
watched
seen
it a
that
second time.
together,
Yeah,
yes.
Blade Runner's kind of a boring movie,
I don't like
honestly.
that
Yeah,
movie.
I mean, I should like it because I'm supposed to be the sci-fi nerd, but
Yeah.
honestly,
I'm not a fan.
Yeah, not the biggest fan. So we got Daryl Hannah playing Madison. We have Eugene Levy.
Yes.
Johnny Rose from Schitt's Creek.
we love him.
I love him. Also, people who like American Pie. He's
Right.
dad in American Pie. He plays Walter Kornbluth, the scientist dude.
The mad scientist.
John Candy plays Tom Hanks' brother.
Freddie.
Cool Runnings.
Yep.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Planes,
Uncle
Trains, and
Buck.
Automobiles. Yes.
John Candy is just the
What
greatest
is he
ever.
not? Yeah. Yep. Home Alone.
Yes.
Hello.
Home Alone. He's
Love
Gus
him.
Polinski,
Yes.
the polka king of the
Oh, my
Midwest.
gosh.
Come on. There's
I
that
love
whole
him.
theory we talked about in
Yes.
our Home Alone one with him. It's great.
Love
we
him.
have Dottie Goodman plays Mrs. Stimler.
Yep.
You brought her up because she was in, what was she in again?
Grease.
She's
She's like the vice principal or assistant or something.
and I'm trying to see, was there anyone else in here that we missed? There's like some faces.
So there's some stuff like I know Ron Howard's. I think it's his brother or something. He's also in Apollo 13. He's in a bunch of his movies.
Yeah,
he was
Rance-
the guy
Rance
that
Howard.
Tom Hanks yelled at about go not the first 3 rows.
Yes.
In the beginning, I guess there was like a few fun little cameos. Like
All
that
the
I saw.
writers have cameos in it
Right.
as well. And there's no other really names on here
Yeah.
that I recognize. There are Clint Howard also I think is.
That's what I just said.
No, Clint Howard and Rance Howard.
No. What I was saying is that a bunch of his relatives were in it. Yeah,
so
like a part of it.
How fun is that? Like, how
Yeah.
did he have that clout that early in his career to be able just to pull
I mean,
his
by
family
the time that
members
he
in?
was directing this movie, he'd probably been in the industry for like 20 years.
That's true. This dude is prolific.
Yes.
Honestly, like, what do you think he's most well known for? I think Arrested Development. But what do you think?
Yeah, I never watched that one. I don't know. I feel like he's like most known as a director only because I feel like that he was like such a big director when I was growing up. So
Yeah.
I feel like maybe that.
I mean, Apollo 13 is a huge movie for directing.
And that's also another Universal one and Backdraft. Like he was just everywhere.
Yeah, craziness. So the composer on here is a guy named Lee Haldridge. Nothing real big of note here.
No, also this music is not anything.
No, nothing special,
noteworthy.
honestly. He did some stuff in like The Simpsons and like some other stuff like The Adventures of Pinocchio, but like not much to talk about there, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a great cast for the 80s. I love it. But let's get into the fun facts now. Actually, yeah, let's get into the fun facts, and then I'm going to bring up one last thing at the end that I want to talk about, the conversation we had before we started podcasting that cracked me up.
Oh, okay.
But, let's tell us all your fun facts
Okay,
you
I
have,
have
since you're
quite
such
a few fun
connoisseur
facts.
of this movie.
What is facts? Baby, they're fun. They're fun. Oh yeah. What is facts? Baby, they're fun. They're fun.
Okay, so one of the first things which I think is like so interesting is that when Daryl Hannah was like in the casting process, one of the things they made all of the actresses do is go in a water tank, which makes sense.
You gotta be comfortable.
Do you know what they were looking for?
Whether or not they could float around well.
They wanted to know if they could swim underwater for an extended period of time without bubbles coming out of their mouth.
Oh,
which makes sense because as humans, you're like blowing the bubbles, but they're supposed to breathe underwater. So there should be no bubbles like coming out of their mouth. And she was one of the few actresses that could do it because she grew up playing mermaid like in the pool and
so
stuff.
She could hold her breath for a long time.
So she could hold her breath for a long time and she wouldn't let the bubbles come out.
How long can you hold your breath?
Not when I was really young, I could do it for a minute.
Oh my gosh.
I bet you now like 15 seconds.
I never played that game well. I could do maybe 10 seconds.
Really?
Because I get in my head where I'm like,
you're like,
no,
you have to go
so,
up.
When you watch movies where someone like falls in the ocean and they're having to like go up and stuff and they're like down there for a minute, I'm like, I would never survive in a situation like this. I would freak out.
No, when I was young, my brother and I would like do like competitions and stuff. I could do it for like a minute. My dad was like could do it longer than that, but I think now I couldn't do it.
That's insane.
Another one, you're gonna like this one. So John Candy in the part where he's speaking Swedish, so he has like a tremendous fear of flying, and they had to fly him in to do the scene. So he had drank and drank and drank on the plane. He could not get through the scene because he couldn't remember how to speak Swedish. So they literally said it took like over 30 takes to get him to do it. They'd be like, please, John, like just please like recite it how we go to, but he couldn't do it.
Why would you fly him out same day?
He was so nervous. I'm like, that is so funny. I just always assume actors aren't scared of flying because they're like flying all around, but that's not true.
That's great. I love that.
Okay, I have a really interesting fact. So more about me than about the movie. But so the movies I grew up watching, what do you think they are? If you could say like the top 4. Splash.
The top 4: Splash, Grease.
The last 2.
Tristan and Isolde.
No.
Hang on. Don't tell me.
Like classic movies I make you watch because I grew up.
Dirty Dancing.
Yeah? What's
Definitely.
the last one?
What's the last one? Oh my gosh. Grease, Dirty Dancing. Not What's Eating Gilbert Grape,
What did we see on our second date or first date the first time?
Street Fighter? No. Hang on. The first... Duh. Footloose.
Yes,
Duh.
Footloose.
How did I forget that? We haven't watched that one in so long.
But it says Ron Howard turned down a bunch of directorial assignments, and one of them was Footloose because he wanted to do Splash. How interesting is that?
That is very interesting. I don't know which one would have been a better move for him, though.
Well, I think Splash was probably a little bit more of a, like he knew it was going to be a success.
Like a quote-unquote success.
Footloose, maybe not so much.
Oh, man.
Another one tied to what I just said about the movies growing up, John Travolta turned down the role of Alan.
Oh, that's cool. I'm glad he did.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Tom Hanks is a way better Alan than John Travolta would have been.
Other people that were up to play the role, Chevy Chase.
Nope, wouldn't have been good.
Bill Murray.
I could see Bill Murray maybe.
I'm so happy that didn't happen. Sorry, I'm about to piss a bunch of people off. I don't care for Bill Murray.
Bill Murray is very much an acquired taste.
Yeah, and then the last one is Dudley Moore.
I don't even know who Dudley Moore is.
Also, it said Michael Keaton was offered the role as Alan's brother Freddie.
That time frame, Michael Keaton would have done really good, I think.
Well, it also said that John Candy wanted to be the mad scientist, and Ron Howard was like, I really want you to be Freddie.
Eugene Levy's way better because Eugene Levy
he's just like not very likable.
No,
I feel like John Candy's too likable.
Yeah, exactly. John Candy just has that face where you just want to like squeeze his cheeks.
Yeah. Another one. So if you had to guess, how many pounds do you think her tail was?
Ooh.
It's not like
40.
It's 35 pounds.
35, okay.
But it would take the technicians, over 3 hours to get her into it.
So
once they were into it, they would just leave her. Like
so she'd have to be floating in the water,
or like just out, like on the beach. Like they wouldn't, like she wouldn't get to go to the bathroom all day.
Gosh.
They wouldn't like feed her. They would just leave her
That'd
there,
be awful.
and then she would like not be able to get in and out of it because it took so long to get her into it. And so she was saying that like she hated it because she would just be like shivering, like waiting for them to come back from whatever they were doing. And
it always sounds so glamorous to be in a role like that because like Jennifer Lawrence had the same thing as Mystique,
right?
Like, she was like, oh, this sounds like a cool thing to play, and then after 6 hours a day of just getting into the makeup, you're kind of like, I'm over this.
Well, I remember watching the behind the scenes of like Elijah Wood in The Hobbit, and they said the feet would take like an hour, let's say, to put on. they would start to count how many times they could actually see their feet in the scenes because they're like, please, like, don't make me put it on if you're not going to see it.
If you're
but
not
obviously
zoomed out,
they had to.
That's so funny.
Another one, which I think is very interesting. So I was named after a mermaid, right?
Yeah.
I hate the ocean. Like, I don't want to go swimming in the ocean. And I also hate seafood, which my parents always give me such a hard time for because they love it.
Yeah.
But fun fact, Daryl Hannah was a devout vegan. She still is to this day. So she was like distraught over the fact that she was going to have to like eat a lobster. So they made her a fake one. And it's like with like rice and
Which I
a bunch of
assume
vegan
that had to be
stuff.
fake. She's like eating the shell of it.
But I thought maybe like, you know, maybe the inside was like actual stuff. It's just the shell or something. But no, she didn't.
That's so funny.
She didn't eat that.
A vegan back in the 80s. I feel like that was very rare back then.
I mean, yeah, I guess so.
Now you could spit anywhere in LA and land on a vegan.
I know, right?
But, yeah.
And then the last thing, which I was going to leave out, but Jordan thought was pretty interesting, is that Tom Hanks had a really hard time filming his underwater scenes because he was a devout smoker.
Yeah. Which is like, why would you not also then vet your person who has a pivotal role that has to be underwater?
I think it was
as
Tom
well?
Hanks. They were like, it's fine. He's not the main mermaid. It's okay.
I wonder at what point was he still smoking during Castaway? Because he's underwater a bit in Castaway, like swimming around and stuff.
I mean, probably. How else would he get that skinny?
That's true.
There's lots of other ways. I just am kind of being funny.
Yeah, but that it does help curve the appetite.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting.
Yeah, so those are some fun facts
So
about
those
the
are really
movie.
fun facts.
Yes.
The funniest thing that you said, which ended up not being true, but kind of true, is you were like, well, you know, there's a sequel.
Which is true.
And it was just true, but you were like, it's called A Bigger Splash.
Yes.
Which I was like, oh my gosh, that's the best name for the sequel ever.
Right.
But then we looked it up.
A made-for-TV sequel, nonetheless.
Yeah, we looked it up, and it's actually just called Splash 2.
Correct.
And you were saying A Bigger Splash is a different movie. And
yes.
I'm looking it up
says
now.
It came out in like 2015 or
2015. The vacation of a famous rock star and her boyfriend in Italy is disrupted by the unexpected visit of an old friend and his daughter.
Yeah.
That's what A Bigger Splash is. But let's see what Splash 2, because did you ever watch Splash 2?
No, and I showed Jordan just a picture when I looked up Splash 2, like just the first thing that came up. It looked awful.
Well, here's the deal. It's called Splash, T-O-O.
Right.
Splash as well.
Like also.
Yes, also. TV movie, 1988, so 4 years later.
Dear
it
Lord.
says, Alan and Madison return to New York, one to save his business, the other to save a dolphin in captivity. And it's played by completely different actors.
No words.
So
no words.
They have the most like porno looking casting of this ever. Like they all look like 99-cent brand knockoffs of the actual actors.
That's literally what I was thinking.
The John Candy guy looks awful. It's so funny. But he looks like just enough like John Candy.
Oh, gosh.
But like,
you're right. The porno version.
it's the porno version.
No.
Oh, my God. But they got Dottie Goodman back to play Mrs. Stimler. She's the only one who came back.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my gosh. It was directed by a guy named Greg Antonacci.
The poor guy.
Yeah.
These are people who are just hurting for roles.
Yeah. You know
what's worse? There were probably people who auditioned and didn't get the role for this movie.
Yes, that's what's even worse. That's pretty bad. I was hoping that this dude, Greg Antonacci, would actually have directed something like interesting, but it's all just a bunch of crap I never heard of before.
More pornos.
Yeah, pretty much. It Takes Two. So
awful.
That Splash, I always have fun rewatching that movie. It's good.
a fun one.
Yeah, it's a fun one. It's definitely got like the good Tom Hanks humor and stuff like that. So, anything else you want to say about this movie?
I don't think so. I feel like it was a lot of fun to watch it.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you missing? There was car chases, a little bit of action, a little bit of humor, lots of
some
sex.
romantic comedy, lots of sex. Yeah. I mean, a CGI moment where Daryl Hannah's legs turn into fins in front of your eyes on screen.
Which pretty much just looks like she's gotten goosebumps.
Yeah. And then you also pointed out, you're like, she found the salt to put in the bathtub.
Yes.
It was like in a dresser drawer.
Right.
Like, who keeps a giant thing of Epsom
I was
salt
trying
there?
to think. I'm like, does he have a saltwater fish tank? Because it was like under the fish tank. But I'm
yes, that's
so it
probably
could have just been there. Because I'm like, how else would she have known?
Yeah, that's probably
I don't really know. But it's like a huge thing of like the Epsom salt, right?
Yeah.
Or what is that salt called?
No, it's
Iodine
called
salt.
it's called Epsom salt.
Is it?
Yeah.
The one with the girl with the
You want a
umbrella?
little- yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
I think it might be iodine salt or
Ionized
something like
or whatever.
That. Yeah.
I think Epsom salt is just a brand name of ionized
Oh,
salt.
okay.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't use that much salt, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fun movie. Go check it out. It's on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Or buy the Blu-ray if you want the unedited
Yeah,
version.
if you want to see Daryl
You wanna
Hannah's
see some
butt
nipples.
and nipples.
Butt and nipples. Although,
Yes.
isn't she naked in like some other films she's in
I think
too?
she's one of those actresses that,
Yeah,
she
she just don't
she's
care.
pretty unabashed.
Yeah, she's like, that is my body.
Yes.
Look at
I mean,
it.
she's got a great body, so.
Mhm. She looks still, like in Kill Bill, she still looked
She looks
very
exactly
similar.
the same. Although I'm pretty sure now she has like gotten a bunch of plastic surgery. Because she was in A Walk to Remember.
Okay.
As like the mom, and she looked a little bit different. And then I remember seeing a picture like a long time ago, and it looked like maybe.
Yeah, I think Daryl Hannah more recently was in that TV show Sense8
Oh, I
that
don't
the
know that
Wachowski siblings did on Netflix. It's like a Netflix show. I think it had like 2 or 3 seasons or something like that.
Interesting.
I've always wanted to check it out. Never actually did. There's a lot of Netflix shows like Altered Carbon and stuff like that I've wanted to check out. I just haven't gotten around to.
The
But
problem is if Jordan can't convince me, you never end up watching it.
But now that at work I have like
That's
lunch breaks,
true.
and that's where I'm watching Avatar: Last Airbender right now.
Yes.
I'm watching Loki while I'm there. Like,
Right.
so now I'm gonna have like a half hour every day that I can devote to like some TV show that you don't have to be
Something.
into.
Correct.
That, you know. So who knows? Maybe Sense8 or Altered Carbon
Maybe.
or something. I don't know. So
Maybe.
we'll see. Maybe I need my more Daryl Hannah fix. So we'll see.
Who doesn't
But-
need a Daryl Hannah fix,
Yeah.
honestly?
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you like our show, go check out some of our other episodes. We got a lot of other
Yes.
80s content as well, Disney content, hitting both those things. Go to our wreckmypodcast.com because that's where our Redbubble store is. That's where our Instagram is. That's where our YouTube channel is. That's where Patreon, where you can become a member of our Patreon for just $1 a month, get you access to new episodes as well as a shout out on the show and sometimes some fun raffles. I
Yeah.
do, you know. Some months I'm a little bit more hands-on than other months, but, you know, that's how it goes. And then go give us a rating or a review. If you give us a review on Apple Podcast app, then we'll send you a sticker.
Also, isn't it just to leave a review? All you have to do is click the 5 stars.
No, actually leave us a review. You get a free
you
sticker.
have to leave a
If you give
review.
us a rating, hey, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'll send you a virtual high five. But
Yeah.
if you want the sticker, you got to give us an actual review.
Yeah.
Say what you think of the show.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
But then, yeah, just take a picture of that, send it to
I mean,
our
I'll
Instagram.
write
and-
something for you. Please
Yeah.
bring on Madison. She's
Yeah.
amazing. I would love to listen to her voice 24 hours
I mean, we
a
did just
day.
get a
I mean,
new review that said that they really liked when you're on because he was like, it reminds me of like me and my wife will go watch a show and then we'll like talk about it and stuff too. So
oh, I thought you were lying. That's so
no,
nice.
no, that's someone
Oh,
actually
cool.
wrote that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, whoever wrote that.
Yeah, Chris from the Drinking Alone with Friends podcast,
Oh,
friend of the
somebody
show.
you know.
Someone
okay,
I know, friend
I've
of the
heard
show.
lots about you.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
But yeah, all that fun stuff. Tune in next week.
Yeah.
See what we're covering. I think soon we were talking about doing Shrek.
Okay, I really want to watch Shrek again.
Shrek would be a cool one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey now.
Yeah.
You're
Would
an all-star.
Yeah. Get your game on.
Go.
Onion. So we will talk to you guys all next week.
Bye.
Wreck My Podcast.